Okay, the JQ Audio 4U Pro. It's a good set. I like it. Single dynamic 4-balanced armature. Let's talk about it. Okay, it's the JQ Audio JQ4U. This is the package ripped open. You've got the cover. You've got assortment of tips, double flange and other kinds, foam tips, all kinds of stuff. It's got a sticker on it that says "Pass the Truth Anytime, Anywhere." I have no idea what that means. Inside the box, you've got a stereo plug adapter, and then you've got, I think, something for using on airplanes. And you've got a warranty card, and then you've got a little plaque on the top when you open it up, and it's indicates a 19 ohm resistant, 1 dynamic driver, 4 balanced armatures. Now I'm going to slowly take a look over to my left. It has a very nice frequency graph, I guess is the best way to put it. There's nothing jumping out in a bad way. It's got enough sub bass and mid bass. It corrects itself to the mids. It looks just like a Zen's T Mark II. It's got a gain that's 6 or 7 dB. It's not too abrupt, and then it's got a slowly cascading waterfall type of upper mids treble, which is really matching to my library. And in listening to this set, that turns out to be the case. Let's talk about it now. I was just listening to Cheap Trick live at Budokan, and that was a nice listen. Let's start with, actually, the first thing that, sorry if this makes you sick, first thing I listened to was the Blue album over on the left side, which is Menace to Society. That was fine. Tupac, Apocalypse Now, Violent, that was fine. So the low energy is doing good. Get to a track you're more familiar with, which is the Kill Jill, the Hatsune Miku at the intro, and then it's a triple drop, and then it goes into a 4-string bass guitar. I thought it did that good. There was no problems with it. Based on what I'd heard previously with hip-hop stuff, I thought that wouldn't be a problem at all. We get to something a little more complicated. Black Sabbath, Massive Reality, Sweet Leaf, a drummer and a bassist going at the same time. I thought it did good. Ozzy wasn't shouting at me. This is really a very similar replay to the Zen's 2. And in some ways it's a little bit better because it's a little less intense in the treble, though the tuning is similar. And this might be related to driver count and the fact that I think there's 2 less BAs in this set. You think more equal better. Yeah, not all the time. That goes without saying. But on this particular track, Ozzy's vocals actually sound better on this set than they do on the T Mark II, to my ears and in my preference. That was notable. Its ability to separate the drummer and the bassist that's going on at the same time was good. It wasn't planar level. Some planars do this very well, but I thought it did really good. I didn't get a sense that I was starting to stumble down into a veil or a woolly mess that was messing up the mids, because it sounded overall quite good. So it did this well for a dynamic driver. Going to the mid bass to check how it sounds. The positioning of the bassist. Is he too forward? Does he sound kind of back and it sounds like an anemic? You see, this is related to mid bass. Sets that have a lower mid bass related to the mids and the gain will make this sound like the bassist is literally just a little bit back. It's track Sultans of Swing, first one off of the Forever Gold Disc 2. He sounded great on this, and this is when it started to, in that side it plays a lot like the T. I think it's got a little more punch than the T, but again, the frequency graph would indicate it's pretty much the same, so stick with that more than my opinion. But it sounds like this one has a little bit more low frequency energy, and I can't quite explain what that is down to. So I think that a set like this is good enough for hip-hop based library, R&B, trip-hop, EDM. It does that with no problem. I think when you get into rock and roll and you listen to drummers and bassists, I think it does that as well. Quite good. Not as good as planars. Resolution not quite on par with some of the more expensive sets. Money doesn't equal quality, but there is sometimes some great replay in some of the more expensive sets. So I don't think this is up on the level of something like an Elysian X or other sets like that. But there's no weak point on this side, which is the bass side. Mid bass and bass are fine. There's no problems with that. As we get into the mids, I'm actually always in the mids because I'm listening to vocals, and you can see Elton John right here. Someone Saved My Life Tonight, Philadelphia Freedom are two tracks I listen to. I listen to Fleetwood Mac Rumors all the time. Again, 4 singers pretty much. Lindsey Buckingham, Stevie Nicks, Mick Fleetwood, Christy McVie. Sometimes there's pretty much a lead singer with 3 people doing a chorus, or there's kind of 2 going back and forth, like Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham on a few tracks. Vocals are very much subject and slave to the way that transducers replay the mid frequencies. So if they're kind of scooped, it's going to give like a hollow cut distant sound, because the gain region relative to the scooped and dipped mid is going to have that effect. It's pushing up the harmonics, but the fundamentals are low compared to it the way that it should be, or what's familiar to your ear. I think that this does mids fine, like the T does it well. This does it also as well. I think that Fleetwood Mac sounded good on this. I think that the Wilson sisters on Heart both sounded good, so female singers. On Fleetwood Mac, you've got male and female singers. I thought that this sounded good. Moving along, listening to something like Jimi Hendrix All Along the Watchtower with 3 different guitar solos. I think that something with this type of tuning in the treble and the upper mids, they made a set that was very expensive. I think it was 6BA, 4 EST, and a dynamic driver. It was called the White Knight, and you can check that out. Maybe I'll put up a graph. That kind of tuning. People ask me about heavy metal sometimes. I think that's something that doesn't push up the harmonics too much, because you've got a lot of high frequency energy with distortion guitars with distortion pedals, a lot of solos, a lot of high energy, a lot of drummers that are slamming on their cymbals, lots of chaos going up there. Something that has boosted treble is really going to make that intense, and you're not going to listen to that for more than 1 or 2 songs, so that people don't really use those for heavy metal. So I get that question a lot. Well, what's a good set for heavy metal? Something that's tuned kind of like this would do well with heavy metal, because all of those potentially offensive harmonics are there, but they're not offensive. There's not a boosted 6 to 10K notch that might become fatiguing that is present in a lot of sets. So when you're looking for something good at heavy metal, something like this or another JQ Audio, the White Knight, take a look at those graphs and find stuff that's kind of like that nothing gets above the area of the gain. I don't want to sit and review a graph, but it does tell the tale in some ways. When the top part of the gain, which is about 2 or 3K right here, actually it's 2K, nothing is higher than that as we go along. That's giving proper replay to vocals, and it's particularly doing well with stuff that's got electric guitar and lots of energy, whether it's Metallica or Iron Maiden or stuff like that. You should be fine. You'll definitely be able to listen longer because of the way that it's tuned. So I think the mids sound fine, and I just kind of tip my hand with the treble. I think that the treble, listening to Coda, the cymbal strikes, which are repeated on Hey Hey What Can I Do, which is the bonus track on this album, I thought sounded excellent. It's got, the strike is nice, and the tail sounds proper. It doesn't sound abruptly cut off. It doesn't sound like it's shimmering too much, like there's that extra boost in the treble region that a lot of people say that doesn't really impact much. It does impact cymbals, and this plays cymbals quite well. I think vocals, Robert Plant, Sneaking South Through the Alley, I think they all sound good. I think that live stuff like Little Feat, Cheap Trick, live at Budokan, Lynyrd Skynyrd, One More From the Road. I think that this set sounds good with live. It doesn't have quite the sense of air and presence that some sets might have, but again, that is taking a region of the replay past 6K and kind of boosting it and giving a sense of space, because these are all earplugs and they're blocking everything out. So when you feel like you're in a large crowd of people with sounds all around you, that's a psychoacoustic manipulation that they do tuning on purpose or accidentally, I don't know. A set like this will play it fine. You might never notice it. There are other ones that have that kind of steroidal boost between 6 and 10K, that can make it sound like maybe there's more space around you, which is not true, but your brain, it's an amazing tool. It can make you feel like you are amongst a crowd, amongst musicians, and listening to something. And people say this is good for live, this is not. What are they talking about? Oftentimes they're talking about elevations beyond 6 kilohertz, because if you've ever played with an EQ or listened to lots of sets, you know that that's the case. So this does fine with live stuff, not quite on the level of some others that usually seem to have a slightly different tuning in the upper mid to treble region. I would prefer this because I can listen to rock and roll, I can listen to hip hop. This set does really everything. There's no clear weak point in it. I don't think the resolution is top notch, but at its price range I really wouldn't expect that. Its bass isn't as fast as planar, or as accurate and precise and clean, but I wouldn't expect that because it's not planar. But for about $239, a hybrid set, it fits good, comes with a nice cable, build quality seems good. I'm not familiar with any issues with QC, with JQ audio. I would recommend it. It's a good set. Wait, look for more reviews. Ask for direct comparisons with sets that are similar to it, because that's what you're considering, things that are like that. And I would say that the T is one of them, and for $100 less, yeah, good set, and I'm out.